Well, Sean Diddy Combs is not going to prison for the rest of his life. After a grueling 7-week federal trial, packed with graphic testimony and frankly shocking revelations, a jury found him not guilty of the two charges that could have locked him up forever: racketeering and sex trafficking. The verdict sent shockwaves through pretty much everyone who had been following this case. So what on earth happened? How does a case that seemed so damning, with so many accusers, end with acquittals on the most serious counts? We're going to break down exactly how the prosecution's case crumbled on those major charges and get into the legal standards that may have left the jury with no other choice. Well, Sean Diddy Combs is not going to prison for the rest of his life. After a grueling 7-week federal trial, packed with graphic testimony and frankly shocking revelations, a jury found him not guilty of the two charges that could have locked him up forever: racketeering and sex trafficking. The verdict sent shockwaves through pretty much everyone who had been following this case. So, what on earth happened? How does a case that seemed so damning, with so many accusers, end with acquittals on the most serious counts? We're going to break down exactly how the prosecution's case crumbled on those major charges and get into the legal standards that may have left the jury with no other choice. All right, let's tackle the big one first: the racketeering charge, also known as RICO. Now, to get a RICO conviction, prosecutors needed to prove way more than just a string of bad deeds. They had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Diddy ran his entire business empire as a criminal enterprise. Think of a mafia boss using their organization specifically to commit and cover up crimes. That's the level they had to reach. The prosecution's argument was that for years Combs used his company and his employees to facilitate his crimes. But here's the thing: RICO cases are notoriously hard to win. You have to show a clear, undeniable pattern of criminal activity, all conducted by a coordinated group working together. The defense just hammered away at the idea that the government didn't have the goods. They pointed out that prosecutors never called key members of Diddy's supposed inner circle as co-conspirators, which made the whole criminal enterprise narrative feel a lot weaker. The difficulty of this charge was clear when the jury, after reaching a verdict on other counts, had to be sent back to keep deliberating specifically on the RICO charge. In the end, it seems they saw Diddy as a powerful individual who committed crimes, but not as the kingpin of an organization designed for crime. Next up is the sex trafficking charge, the other count that carried that potential life sentence. For the jury to convict, the prosecution had a very specific job. They had to prove Diddy used force, fraud, or coercion to make his victims engage in commercial sex acts. The testimony from his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura and other women was emotionally powerful and detailed some truly horrific abuse. But the defense strategy boiled down to a single powerful word: consent. Diddy's lawyers argued that his world, while maybe immoral to most people, was a consensual swinger lifestyle. To back this up, they showed text messages and emails where the women involved appeared to be willing, even enthusiastic participants. This created just enough reasonable doubt around that critical element of coercion. The defense effectively reframed the narrative as a story of toxic, abusive, and sometimes violent relationships, but not one that fit the very precise legal definition of sex trafficking. From the start, legal experts noted this was a weak point for the prosecution because of that evidence. The jury's task was to separate the awful acts of domestic violence from the specific legal elements of trafficking. They ultimately decided the prosecution just didn't get there beyond a reasonable doubt. So, after all that, what was he found guilty of? The jury did convict Combs on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, which is a violation of the Mann Act. And here's the key difference. Unlike sex trafficking, this charge does not require the prosecution to prove force, fraud, or coercion. All they had to show was that Diddy knowingly transported people across state lines for the purpose of prostitution. Here, the evidence was much more direct. Prosecutors used flight records, financial statements, and witness testimony to draw a straight line, showing Diddy paid to fly women and male sex workers across the country for sex. These charges each carry a maximum sentence of 10 years. Now that's a significant amount of time, but it's a world away from the life sentence he was staring down.